have been in a series on relationships. And today we're going to probably talk about one of the most common thing that every relationship has. Many of you had this on your way in, which is called conflict. Anybody had conflict this year so far? Just this year? Don't even raise your hand about today. This year, just this year, you've had some conflict in a relationship. Now, here's the beauty of this. Like, conflict is not just in marriage. So if you're single here and you're like, oh, this doesn't apply to me. Oh, yeah, just trust me, it does. If you're engaged and you're like, we don't ever argue, just wait. All the married people are like, sucker. Like, it'll happen. Just wait. It'll happen. So you're just going to want to kind of jot some things down for a friend, just for a friend. But you have conflict in every single kind of relationship known to man. A working relationship, there's conflict. Jesus said, when two or more are gathered, there you'll have conflict. No, he didn't say that. He did not say that. He said, when two or more are gathered in my name, then I am there. But the truth of the matter is that when you put two people together, there's conflict. Where do you want to eat? I don't know. You have conflict in every kind of relationship, whether it's family, whether it's marriage, whether it's dating, whether it's working. No matter what kind of relationship you are in, it leaves room for conflict because here's one of the things I want you to get is that we're all wired so differently from each other. Every single one of us is wired differently from each other. Take, for example, just a common thing right here, men and women. Men, we were built to fix things. I mean, if it breaks, baby, I got it. You don't have to call Roto-Rooter. We got this. Go get a wire hanger. I got this thing. I know how to fix. I can take care of it. I can help out. So men, we were created to fix things. Now women, you guys were created a little bit different. You want to process things. Men, we hear issues that our wives are talking about, and we're like, I can fix it. I got it. And women, you're like, I don't need you to fix it. I just need you to listen. You never listen to me. Now I heard you. You got a problem. No, you just don't get it. Let me show you what that looks like in the context of a relationship. Let's watch this video.
There's all this pressure, and sometimes it feels like it's right up on me, and I can just feel it, like literally feel it in my head, and it's relentless, and I don't know if it's going to stop. I mean, that's the thing that scares me the most, is that I don't know if it's ever going to stop.
Yeah. Well, you do have a nail in your head.
It is not about the nail.
Are you sure? Because, I'll bet if we got that out of there...
Stop trying to fix it.
No, I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just pointing out that maybe the nail is causing...
You always do this. You always try to fix things when what I really need is for you to just listen.
No, see, I don't think that is what you need. I think what you need is to get the nail
See, you're
out.
not even listening now.
Okay, fine. I will listen. Fine.
It's just... Sometimes it's like there's this achy... I don't know what it is. And I'm not sleeping very well at all. And all my sweaters are snagged. All of them.
Yeah, that sounds really hard.
It is. Thank you. Ow!
Oh, come on. If you would just...
Don't.
Try to see things my way. Do I have to keep on talking?
Come on. How many of you have been there before? It's not about the nail. Okay. You keep trying to fix it, and it's not about what we think. And here's what we have to understand when it comes to any kind of relationship is that we're all created differently. We're wired differently. We have different thoughts, different ideas, different opinions. You can't deal with everybody the same way. How many of you have realized that with your kids? I can't talk to my kids the same way I talk to one versus the other. One needs a little gentle reminder, like, you're special, you're amazing, and that's awesome. We're very proud. The other one's like, hey, listen, just stop doing that. So it's just they're wired differently. And then the way that you present things to your children, you have to present something different to your spouse. You can't talk to your spouse the same way. Baby, listen, if I could just talk to you for 1 second. Your wife's going to be like, what are you doing? Who are you talking to? Like, why are you trying to treat me like a child? You know, so then there's different areas that you have to, you know, you go to work, you can't talk to the people at work like you would talk to the people at home, and you can't, it just begins to change everywhere you go. Why? Because we're all wired differently. And so you have to address people differently when it comes to this idea of conflict. And now, I want to kind of bring us into this thing. As we talk about the art of conflict, there is a class that we are doing. I am going to do a class. I have taken a course on coaching on how to have conflict resolution, healthy conflict. And so we have a class. His sign-up sheet is over at the information booth. February 26th and March 1st are the 2 dates that we're doing. It's a 2-part class, so it's not just one or the other, and we'll do the same. It's a 2-part class. It's very effective. And just talking about the art of conflict. How do you have healthy conflict and get through things in a healthy way? So if you're interested in being a part of that, make sure that you sign up at the information table, and we'll gather all the information, send it out to you, and then we'll have that. We'll meet right here at our building. God, that feels good to say that. We'll meet right here in our building. All right, let's look at this real quick as we open up the scriptures. Proverbs, the book of Proverbs, if you ever do a study on Proverbs, it has 3 main characters throughout the entire book of Proverbs, which is the wise, the fool, and the evil. 3 main characters that you'll hear about as you read and study throughout the scriptures in the book of Proverbs, the wise, the fool, and the evil. Now, Solomon gives us these 3 common behavioral patterns to help us understand like who we're dealing with and how do we respond. Here's what I say to you is when you are having conflict with people, here's my rule number 1, don't take it personal. Don't take it personal. What if it's personal? Don't take it personal. What if it's not personal? Don't take it personal. You can't take the conflict personal. It's an opportunity for you to grow in a situation that is being presented to you. If you become defensive, here's what I learned this week is that when you become defensive, you've already positioned yourself to lose. You have to stay in the student position when it comes to conflict. Hey, help me understand a little bit more about how you feel. It's a common thing that I continue to say when you're dealing with conflict. Hey, help me understand that a little bit. Help me understand that. It doesn't say, hey, you're wrong. It just says, hey, help me understand. I just don't understand what you're saying. Maybe I'm confused. And so Proverbs, Solomon, who's known as one of the wisest people to ever live, Solomon begins to write about this. And I think what he does is in Proverbs 9, kind of highlights not just these common behavioral patterns, but gives us the ability to, how do we respond? So here's what I'm going to tell you is this week, what you need to do, make sure you take down some notes. You're going to write on your sheet, wise, fool, and evil. Next time you have conflict, you need to decide which area you're going to put the person you're having conflict with in. Do not elbow your spouse or significant other in this room and be like, fool, you're evil. Let's not label them right now, okay? You do that when you're at home with yourself. You guys just figure out who's who. But at the end of the message, here's what I'm going to do is challenge you to ask yourself, now, which one are you? Many of us, we're going to process this message in the lens of the last or the most recent conflict that we've had. And then we're going to go, oh, yeah, that person was this. And then what you do is at the end of the message, I'm going to challenge you, which one are you? Which category do you fall into? So let's start with the easiest one. Many of you in the room, if not all of us in the room, the wise, okay? This message is for you, the wise, and then the other part, you just send that to a friend, okay? So the wise is this. Here's what the scripture says in Proverbs 9. Watch what Solomon says. Anyone who corrects a fool will get an insult in return. How many of you have ever experienced this in your life? Anytime that you correct somebody, it's like, wait a minute, what? Me? You? Your mom? Right? You've gotten that before. The Bible tells you this. This isn't like light bulb moment. This is like, oh yeah, sure, I've been down that road before. Anyone who corrects a fool will get an insult in return. Now he moves on. He says, but anyone who corrects the evil, watch this, will get hurt. Verse 8. So don't bother correcting fools. They will only hate you, but correct the wise and they will love you. Interesting there, that the fool will then try to hurt you. The fool will try to heap insults on you. The evil will try to hurt you, and the wise will love you. So let's start with the wise. What do? Well, here's the deal. When you're dealing with the wise, I like to use this light as an example. Josh, if you'll come on up just for a second here. Josh is one of our very own. He graduated North Central University, was a part of North Star Community Church, now missionary. To him and his wife, Mallory, are both missionaries and doing an amazing job in Pittsburgh, working with the teenagers. I told him today, it's always fun watching him on Instagram and on their stories and just seeing the impact that you guys have made. So I figured, why not embarrass you a little bit? So Josh, if you'll come right here, okay? And so what happens when you're having conflict with somebody and you're dealing with the wise, today you get to go home and tell your wife, you are wise. Pastor said so. She's going to disagree. But she's like, does he really know you? So Josh, here's what happens is when we have conflict and you're the wise, I'm going to share some things with you. Josh, here's what I think is going on. Like, Josh, this is just what I see because I love you and I care about you and we're good friends. I could speak into your life and I could share some things that I see that you may not see, that may be hidden. They're blind spots that you can't see. So what I want to do is I want to shed some light on this conversation, right? So I'm going to shine a light into some dark areas that Josh may not see. Why? Because I'm his friend. I love him. I care about him. And we have this mutual relationship where I can speak into his life and he can speak into my life. And I can share some things like, hey, I saw your attitude the other day. Woo, buddy, we need to talk about that. Only because I love you. Here's what the wise will do. The wise will respond and they'll begin to appreciate it. Man, you're right. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And so the wise will begin to change things. So what the wise will do, let me just make sure I'm following here correctly because they're going to have it up on the screen for you. When the light comes in, which is the truth, when the light comes in, they adjust themselves to match the light. That's wisdom. Hey, thanks. Thanks for sharing that with me. You speak truth into a person's life. Here's what happens is they begin to change. Man, you know what? Thanks for sharing. They don't get angry. They begin to change. You know what? Hey, thanks for sharing that with me. I need to make some changes. And oftentimes when you're dealing with the wise, notice this. These will be indicators when you're dealing with the wise. Hey, I appreciate that. Thanks for sharing that with me. How can I get better? What are your thoughts? What can I do? Can you hold me accountable? That's a good point. I appreciate you sharing that with me. Proverbs, Solomon is saying, listen, when you correct the wise, here's what he says, they'll love you for it. They'll love you for it. They'll appreciate it. That's why the Bible says iron sharpens iron. You know that you're in a great relationship, a good friendship, a good working relationship when you could speak life into each other and have crucial conversations where iron sharpens iron. And we get better. Listen, you got to understand this in any marriage. You got to hear this. Iron sharpens iron. In other words, sparks are going to fly. If you're going to sharpen each other, you're going to have to walk through some conflicts. You're going to have to walk through some issues in order to get sharp and better. That's what Solomon says. Listen, they'll love you all the more when you deal with the wise. So what's the strategy? What is a good strategy when you're working with the wise? Josh, you're such a wise guy. In a good way. What's the strategy when you're dealing with Josh? Here it is. Keep talking. Why? Because he keeps listening. When you're dealing with the wise, keep talking. They are teachable, coachable. They want to know. They're willing to accept it. They value your friendship. They value the relationship enough to say, hey, I know what you're doing is not trying to hurt me. I'm not taking it personal. But man, this is like, thank you for sharing that with me. Let me just give you a side note. People are going to disagree with you, and no matter what you do, not everybody's going to agree with you. You're going to have issues. You're going to have problems. What I've learned from me is just one of these things. I don't take it personal. I hear people out. In the Bible, you want to be able to say, hey, listen, there's a little bit of truth to everything. And you've got to be willing to receive what people are saying. Hear it. Man, thanks. And oftentimes you'll hear me say this, hey, that's a gift. What you gave me today was a gift. And they're thinking, it wasn't meant to be a gift. I was trying to hurt you. And you're just like, thanks for the gift. I'm going to be able to learn from this. I'm going to be able to grow from this. And I want to say thank you. And I'm going to take some of these notes. I'm going to take some of these things down. I'm going to talk with mentors. I'm going to talk with friends. I'm going to talk to people in my life. And I'm going to make some changes. Thank you. So that's the wise. You're doing great. You're just standing there just like a wise guy. You're doing awesome. Now let's move on to the one that we've all known to love and hate, the fool. Let's move on to the one that we all really want to learn a little bit more about. And so the fool tends to be the sharpest, the brightest person in the room. Anybody know somebody like that? They know everything. Sharpest person. Oh, well, I know a little bit more about this than you. Well, because I'm educated. And here's the truth. The truth is this. Most of the time, they are the brightest person. So, Josh, unfortunately, you now have to become the fool. You got to become the fool today. So Josh now is the wise person, but now he becomes the fool. And so now notice this. When the light comes in for the wise person, they adjust themselves. Man, this is good. I need to make some changes in my life. I've got to make some changes. I've got to change some things around. But now the fool, watch this on the screen. The fool doesn't just change themselves. The fool now change the light. So now when talking to the wise, and I say, Josh, here's what it is. Oh, yeah, that's great. Now what the fool does, the fool will now turn the light this way and go, wait a minute, it's not my fault. This is your fault. You ever dealt with somebody like that? You're like, hey, I want to shine the light in an area that I don't think you see. And it's just a little bit further back. It's just right there. You don't really see it. And because I love you and I care about you, the fool will not adjust themselves. The fool will adjust the light in the situation and go, wait a minute, it's not me, it's... Well, listen, I wouldn't have hit you if you wouldn't have called me that name. But yeah, you know what? That's not appropriate for you to do that. And so what happens is the fool will always adjust the light. They'll always externalize things that everybody else's fault, everybody else's issues, everybody else's problems. Why? Because the light hurts their eyes. You ever heard this statement? That the truth is blinding? I can't see the truth. I can't see what you're, no. It's not my fault. It's your fault. No. I didn't do the wrong thing. No. It's you. And it's not me. It's you. And I wouldn't have done that if you wouldn't have done that. And it's not, well, you don't know the whole story. If this would have happened, if that would have happened, if you would have went, and David would have went, if she would have said, if he would have said, and it's everybody else's fault. And what they do is they externalize it. Let me hit this with you. That's an indicator. That's a red flag that you are dealing with a fool. Now remember what Solomon says about dealing with the fool. Man, you'll end up getting hurt. It'll come back on you. And so when you're dealing with the fool, they'll adjust the light to put it back on you. And here's what they'll do. They'll go, no. You remember when you said? You remember when you did? Listen, you're not perfect. Don't try to act like you're the perfect person. Don't try to act like you're the best person. Don't try to act, listen, and they want to bring up all of your past, all of your issues, all of your mistakes, everything like that. And they go way back to the very first day you met, to the very first time you had a conflict in your life and in your relationship, in your marriage, and in your career. And they bring up all these things. Here's what they're doing is they want to control the conflict. And they deflect. No. Don't look at my issues. Don't look at what's in the light. I want you to look at what's your issues. And so they deflect that and push it off onto somebody else's. And what they do is they deny it. They'll minimize it. Yeah, but the only reason, that's not acting. And they'll externalize it, and it's everybody else's fault. And here's what I've learned. It's hard for fools to own it. It's hard for a fool to be like, yeah, that's on me. My bad. I'm sorry. It's hard for a fool to say, yeah, I got to own that. I missed it. I missed the mark. And I messed up and I shouldn't have done that. Can you please forgive me? It's hard for a fool to own it, and it's hard for a fool to apologize. And so it becomes a little bit more of what fools don't realize is a character flaw. Because a character flaw for a fool is, hey, listen, when the truth comes in, and what they do is they change the truth, they change the light, they push it back on me. And now all of a sudden, rather than being willing to receive, now Josh is positioned and postured himself to now be defensive. And so now he only has the ability to do what? Attack. No, you. You did, you said, you were, you didn't, you never, you could, you should. And now it's defensive on somebody, and he's trying to now master the art of moving the light. So when the truth comes in, they'll change the truth. They won't own it. And a lot of times what happens is they get angry. It's a red flag. It's an indicator. Some of you are starting to think about some of the conflicts that you've had in your life, and you're like, oh, okay, wait a minute. And it's an indicator. Now listen, it's okay to be angry. Listen to what I say. The Bible says it. In your anger, do not sin. Some people think, oh, I got angry, I must be in sin. No. You're human. It's a humanistic nature. It's a behavior that we all get angry at times in our life, but it does not give me the right to turn around and sin. It doesn't give me the right to turn around because Josh attacked me for me to go and attack him, verbally or physically. Does not give you the right. Bible doesn't give you that wisdom. The Bible doesn't say, well, if they hit you, then you hit them back. The Bible just says, listen, here's how we handled conflict. When it comes at you, what you want to be able to do is be able to receive it. If you share with the wise, they'll love you all the more. But the fool, watch what Proverbs says later on. You see, Solomon says this in Proverbs 26, verse 4. He says this right here up on the screen. You'll see it. Don't answer the foolish arguments of fools. Ooh, I love this. Or you will become as foolish as they are. How many of you have entertained a conversation with a fool? And then all of a sudden, you found yourself, later on, you removed yourself from the situation, and you're like, what was I thinking? I fell into the trap. I can't believe it. It happened. It worked. Listen, I've been there a million times. Why? Here's why. Don't answer the foolish arguments of a fool. Hey, I'm sorry you feel that way. I've had people before go, are you not going to respond to what I'm saying? No. And in my head, I'm realizing what Proverbs 26 says. They don't. They're like, what they want to do is they want to argue back and forth. You don't respond, and now they want to call it conflict, and you just won't have conflict with me, and you lack communication, and you're horrible. And so now what they're doing is they're shining the light right on you, and because this is your issue, this is your fault, and the whole time we were just talking about a little something, because I love you and I care enough about you to share this with you. Man, every relationship walks through these situations. Can you guys give it up for Josh? Just stick to the wise. Just tell your wife you were wise. Pastor said, the last thing I said was you were wise. What happens is we want to adjust the light in people's lives. We want to begin to now start pointing the light in everybody else's life where now it's your fault. No, actually, you know what? It's your fault. I know what you're wanting to say, but I don't really care. No, it's not me. It's you. No, actually, it is you. It's you. Out of everybody, it's you. And I see what you're saying. And no. Actually, you know what? It's you. It's not me, it's you. And guess what? I just want you to know why it's not me is because for me, listen, I'm good. I really am. I've done a lot of coaching classes. I read my Bible. I'm good. You? Not so good. See, the wise will take it in. They'll own it. Yeah, you're right. The fool will deflect it and be like, nope, that's on you. So what is the strategy when you are dealing with a fool? What do you do? It's a great question. Here's what I would say is two things that you need. A lot of this information I got from Henry Cloud, Dr. Henry Cloud, who is a psychologist and an author who has written books like Boundaries, and he has written another book called Necessary Endings. And a lot of this came from just doing some research and studying because, just so you forgot, I'm really good. I'm in the light. I'm good. You, maybe not. I don't know. But here's what he says. 2 things that you need when you are dealing with a fool, when it comes to conflict, 2 things. Number 1, you need clear boundaries and clear consequences. Notice how this lines up. The wise, when the light comes in, when truth comes in, they adjust themselves. My bad, I got to own that. I got to make some changes. The fool, they adjust the light. It's your fault. When the truth comes in, they change. They change for the better. They thank you. They appreciate it. Man, I value our friendship. But for the fool, they change the truth. And here's what happens is they hate you for it. According to Proverbs, Solomon says, they'll hate you for coming into that. Some of you'll be on a different side of conflict when you're walking through conflict with other people. Sometimes I'll have couples come in, and they'll want, and it's kind of like I'm mediating in a sense, and we're walking through situations for them, and we're trying to help them in a marriage situation or relational situation, whatever it may be for them, and we're trying to walk them through. And this is a key indicator right here, because you'll have people who will go, man, I hate that person. And I'm not talking about like hate broccoli. Ate broccoli the other day, thank you very much, because I'm trying to change, trying to work it out. But I hate that person. I hate this about, and they don't know me, and they don't know that. And all of a sudden, they begin to start changing the truth. They change the light, and they start verbally attacking. And so, Henry Cloud says the best thing that you can do in a situation like this is stop talking. Stop talking. Or what? Proverbs tells you, or you're going to be just as foolish as they are. If you entertain this, what's going to happen is you will either become as foolish as they are, or you will become as angry as they are. And you'll take their pain and own it, and it becomes now your pain. And so Solomon says, listen, no. Stop talking. Don't entertain that argument. Don't entertain that. But what you do need to do is you need to set clear boundaries. And here's what I would say is, listen, here's what that looks like. Maybe for some of you, it's like, how do I do that in my marriage? How do I do that in the context of family members? How do I do that in the context of working relationship? How do I do that? Listen, at some point what you do is you have to have a conversation. You have to be able to say, hey, listen, at the end of the day, I'm not going to talk about this argument anymore, that you feel like I've done this or I've done that. I'm not going to talk about that anymore. Here's what we are going to talk about. Because talking doesn't help. You ever realize that with some people? Talking doesn't help. So here's what we're going to do, is we're going to set a boundary. When we hang out, we're not going to talk about this anymore. Listen, when I come into a meeting, listen, we're not going to talk about this anymore. I'm going to set a boundary. We're not going to have the same conversation over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, thinking and hoping that you're going to change. Because what that makes me is insane. Because I keep having the same conversation, hoping that things are going to be different. I keep doing the same thing, hoping that things are going to change, and that's the definition of insanity. Hey, I've realized things just aren't going to change. It's not going to change. And I can't change it. But here's what we're going to do. Because I love you and I value you, here's what we're going to create a healthy boundary. And sometimes people are like this. And I just be honest with you, just to know a little backstory of some of the conversations I've had to have when I've counseled people. The reason that some people operate in the foolish tendencies, in this category of being a fool, not saying that they are, is because of shame. Because of the past, because of insecurities, because of things that they've done. Some people tend to be like this where they turn the light because it's a fear of being wrong. Sometimes it's the way that they grew up, and it was like, I can never be wrong. I have to always be right. I have to prove something to somebody. And so what happens is they'll shine the light because they don't want you to see their mistake. They don't want you to see their pain. They don't want you to see their issues, their insecurities, their problem. They don't want you, so they'll adjust the light. And the problem sometimes is there's a reason why people do that. And sometimes in this conversation, we say, listen, I just want to bring this. I'm not going to talk about the issue anymore with you. It's just that it doesn't get anywhere. But I want you to understand that sometimes because I love you and I bring things to you, I share things with you because I care about you and because I love you. But what you oftentimes do, and I don't know if you realize it, is then all of a sudden you attack me. you come after me. And when you come after me, listen, here's the problem. You come guns blazing. You talk about the very things that I've done, that I've shared with you in private, the things that I've shared with you in secret, the things that I've shared with you that I struggle with, and now all of a sudden you are blasting me. You're no better than me. Remember you talked about this? Remember you said this about yourself? And it's like, oh my gosh. There's a reason why people respond that way. And maybe for you, it's just one of those things where you just say, hey, listen, let's talk about that. You ever notice that when I present something to you, it's hard for you to take it. It's hard for you to own it. It's hard for you to really receive that thing. And so here's what I would say. Hey, can you help me understand? Great words. Marriage, couples, engaged. Listen. Ask this question. Can you help me understand? Can you help me understand why it's hard for you to take correction and responsibility? Can you just help me understand? I'm not saying you're right or you're wrong. I just don't understand why you're always doing this. It doesn't say that they're the problem. It doesn't say that they're wrong. It just simply says, hey, I don't get it. I need some help. And when you find out why, here's what I can tell, is that you can talk about how do you do it differently next time. Then you can, hey, listen, next time if there's an issue, listen, man, how could I do that better where you don't attack me? How can I do it? Maybe it's a way that you might need to change. Maybe there's another side of the coin of like your delivery. You know, you think, your version is, hey, Josh, I just wanted you to know, like I really get upset when you bite your fingers and it really makes me mad and it just doesn't really work. But yet at the same time, Mallory could be over there and be like, what is wrong with this thing? Sorry. Got you now. Some of you are like, I'm with him. I'm with you. You might be perceiving it this way because of some things that you've walked through or maybe that is the truth. Maybe that is reality. And so that's where the question is, hey, how could I do it better to the point where you don't feel defensive, but you feel loved? You feel cared for? Because I don't want to attack you. I don't want you to feel that way. How could I do it better? Set a boundary. Then here's the other thing. It says set consequences. Just to be clear, we could do it your way. Josh, no problem. I can talk to you about your fingernails and all that stuff, and I won't throw chairs at you, and I get it. You don't like that, and that's okay. But what happens if you respond like that again? What do? Boundaries. Consequences. Can I tell you that the consequences is the hardest part? Setting boundaries is no problem. It's following through is what makes things hard. Say, hey, listen, we're not going to do that. If that happens again, here's what I need you to understand is we have to separate. I tell you, if that happens again, we can't have that conversation. Hey, if that happens again, we're going to have somebody else come in on it. Hey, if that happens again, there's clear boundaries, clear consequences when this thing happens. And so you set those clear boundaries and consequences and you follow through. Here's the principle. Fools will try to change the truth until they're forced to feel and deal with reality. And the only way that sometimes people will deal with the reality is when they are alone and you follow through and now they're faced with nothing more than just the truth. And it'll be your fault. Trust me, it'll all be your fault for a while. And then eventually, that person will be left with the reality of what they've been doing, where they've been. But if you keep going back, I'm going to try to help them. I'm going to try to save the day. I'm going to try to rescue them. Talk about my neighbor often growing up. And as he entered into his teenage years, he really began to get addicted to drugs and alcohol and just really went just tail spinning in the wrong direction. But his folks, his parents would constantly bail him out of jail. They'd get him the best attorneys, and they were constantly helping him and trying to save him and try to rescue him because we love him and we want to do what's right. We want to help him because I love him. And at the end of the day, here's what everybody was saying. You need to let him sit in jail. I know some of you parents are like, oh my gosh, why would you do that? Because maybe in jail he actually deals with the reality of what he's been doing. And eventually they ran out of money because you can't always help them. They ran out of resources. They ran out of abilities to help him. And what happened to him? He was faced with just his own actions. And you know what happened for his life? He changed. Here's the good story of a fool from a recovering fool. You can change. Fools have the ability to change. And the truth is that we've all been there in our life. We've all been foolish. We've all handled things poorly. We've all been in places where we just didn't do things the right way. But the good news is, because of God's grace and his love and his mercy, we can move from being a fool into being a person of wisdom. And so here's what I would say is the last part is going to be the evil. Now, I want you to look at this real quickly as we kind of do this. The wise person, how do I know who I'm dealing with? If you can kind of categorize this in your mind, the next time that you're dealing with people and you're having a conflict, whether relational, whether it's working, whatever it may be, when you're dealing with people, you line it up like this. The wise, when the light comes in, when truth comes in, they adjust themselves. Man, I need to make some changes. Thanks so much for sharing that with me. I appreciate you. I love you all the more for doing that. I value our relationship. The fool will adjust the light and it becomes your fault. And Proverbs, Solomon says, they'll hate you for it. The wise will love you, but the fool will hate you. Now look at what the evil does. When the light comes in, when the truth comes in, they want to inflict pain. There's a difference here. And I hope you hear me this morning as we talk about this. When the light comes in, they want to inflict pain. And I know some of you here in your just Minnesota nice, passive-aggressive ways, you can't imagine, like, that's not true. Nobody would ever want to do that. Ever walk through a divorce? You ever known somebody to walk through a divorce? Oh, we love you. You're amazing. You're awesome. I love this person. I will kill you. I will take you down. I will take everything from you. You will rot in hell. Things that people say, right? What happens is when pressure comes on, the true person comes out. When the pressure's on, the things that people struggle with will all automatically come out. And so what you see, what happens is people will begin to become evil and they want to inflict pain physically, verbally. They want to attack. They want to bring up things that that you've walked through. And I know some of you usually like, oh, no, that would never be. Listen, when you shine a light on their weakness, their insecurity, their character flaws, here's what happens is they will try to destroy you. They don't want you to see their insecurities. They don't want you to see the issue. They don't want you, like, listen, I have to project that I'm good. I have to project that I got it all. I have to have, everybody needs to see me doing well. And the truth is this, listen, we all got issues. We're all jacked up. We all have problems. Why? Because Jesus said it. In this world, you will have problems. Not me. My marriage is good. We're solid. We're awesome. And your spouse is over there being like, you're an idiot and a liar. And I want to inflict pain on you right now. But there's a reason that people they don't want. No. If I can keep the light there, one, I control the light. Some of you, listen, some of you are like, that's a bright light. Listen, I have 4 of them shining at me every single week. You know what I'm saying? Look at that. That's God's grace on your life. God's like, put the light back on you, you jerk. I know. So what happens is we don't want people to see our issues, our insecurities, our problems, our pain, our past. And so we'll push that off on other people. And I've seen this in friendships. I've seen this in marriages. I've seen this in companies. I've seen this with family members. I've seen this bring people down. I've seen relationships and friendships just sever apart. And here's what you'll hear people say. Here's an indicator of when you're dealing with the evil. Here's what you'll hear. Here's a red flag. Here's an indicator. Here's a warning sign. Is when you hear somebody say, you're either with me or you're against me. Here's what they're saying. If you're with me, then I'm good to you. But if you're against me, you're my enemy. That's an indicator of who you're dealing with. That's a clear indicator that you may need to take 2 steps back and assess the situation and go, okay, hold on. So if I'm with you, I'm with you. And if I'm not, I'm not. In other words, we're against. And so what happens is people who are evil, who operate in the evil, according to what Proverbs and Solomon is saying is, man, when the truth comes in, they become destructive towards others, verbally and physically. They'll become destructive toward you or even oftentimes themselves, because now you see me. Now I'm exposed. Now the light's on me, and I can't hide from it. And so what I have to do is now I have to become destructive. I've got to tear some things down, because if I can verbally assault Josh, if I can physically assault, I can push him away. It's his fault. It's his issues. It's his problem. And so what happens now is, boom, the light goes on him, and I'm going to push him to the point where he wants to attack me. I'm going to push him so hard where he wants to come after me. And when he does, here's what the evil person does. You have to hear me on this one. Listen. When they do that, they will push until the point that you respond, and guess whose fault it is? Wait a minute. All I did was talk to Josh about his nail biting, and it just absolutely bothered me. Jesus, don't let it happen again. All I did was just talk about how it bothered me, how it frustrated me, and the light was on him. And listen, guys, here's all I did. All I did was talk to him about nail bite. Like, I have a sensory disorder. I can't stand the sound of crunching on your fingers. I don't like it. It bothers me. And then he puts dry cereal in his mouth, and it just bothers me. And then he takes carrots at night, and he chews on them with celery, and it just drives me up a wall. How many of you are like that? You can't stand the sound of people chewing. Oh, dear God in heaven, please help me. That is me to the max. I'm like, Aiden, chew with your mouth closed. And so what happens is we shine the light on everybody else. I mean, this is his fault. And I push him so hard to the point where he attacks me. And guess what? Now, when there are boundaries and consequences, it's my fault. Because now Josh then turns on me and attacks. And the evil person will plan out their attack. I'm telling you, they are strategic in what they do. And so all I did was tell Josh, but I pushed him so hard that now all of a sudden he's attacking me. And I knew what I was doing, because now I can go over here and go, Emily, can you believe what Josh did? He literally, he hit me. And all I did was just tell him that he was biting his nails. There's an attack. So what do you do when you're dealing with the evil? Okay? We see our strategy for the wise. You want to keep talking. They'll love you for it. The fool, create boundaries, consequences. What do you do for the evil? Well, here's what Henry Cloud says. You need money, guns, and lawyers. When you are dealing with the evil, you need money, guns, and lawyers. I know some of y'all are like, that's right, I got an amendment here. I got my rights. I got my gun. It's got it right here. Listen, I'm not talking about that. And neither is he. Listen, here's what he's saying. You're going to have to protect yourself. You're going to have to guard yourself. You're going to have to guard your heart. Listen, Proverbs 3 says, above all else, guard your heart, for it influences the direction and the quality of your life. You have to guard yourself. Now, Henry Cloud in his book talks about this, and what he says is sometimes you're going to need money, guns, and lawyers for this situation, because it's going to, if you're going to have to get a lawyer, you're going to have to get a really good one. It's going to cost you a lot of money. And if you're dealing with some issues, that you're going to have to call the police. That's the gun part. Okay, don't take your gun out on the person you have conflict with. The gun is for the law enforcement, okay? Just making sure we're clear on that. Pastor said to take out my gun. We have a whole nother situation on our hand. Do not bring me into the middle of your issues here on that one. You're going to need money, guns, and lawyers. Listen, here's what he's saying. Listen, at some point, you've just got to stop talking, and you've got to create those boundaries and consequences. And when you are dealing with the evil, and they are becoming destructive, and they're coming at you, you have to go into protection mode. You have to protect your family. You have to protect what you have going on. You've got to think about yourself. You've got to think about your kids. You've got to think about your family. You have to think about your marriage. And here's some of the things that sometimes you may have to say when it comes down to this. Hey, the only way that I'm going to talk to you is through my attorney. and then you stop talking. And then you're going to have to pay a lot of money for that attorney. Sometimes you're going to have to call the police. I've seen it. I've helped people walk through this. And I'm looking at this from the lens of what Solomon says from Proverbs chapter 9, verse 7. Up on the screen, here's what he says. Anyone who corrects the evil will get hurt. And the truth is, some of us here today that we've tried to help people, and in the end, we got hurt. We got burned. When it comes to healthy conflict, the only way that you'll know that you're dealing with, or who you're dealing with, is when you ask questions and you listen. Part of this will be in our session that we'll do, our class that we'll do on the 26th of March 1st. We'll do this whole thing and talk about conflict. And the greatest way to handle conflict is to ask questions. Help me understand. How'd this start? Where did we go wrong? What's the issues? Begin to ask questions. Their response will help you determine who they are and how you should respond. Let's put up the wise, fool, and evil on the screen. If you want to take a picture of that, you can. Here's what I would say to you is, now with all that being said, and we've looked at this through the context of other relationships, other people. We've looked at this from the last person we had conflict with. We look at this from the lens of our spouse, or we look at this from the lens of a family member. And now, here's the question. Here it is. Which one are you? Now you think about the last conflict you had. Which one are you? It's a hard reality now when you look at it and you go, man, I responded evil. I responded foolish. I responded with wisdom. With the wise, here's my counsel to you. Stay open, stay teachable. Thank the people who are willing to invest into your life and share truth into your life. Value that relationship more than you value some of the others. Because some people will just be passive and they'll just love you for who you are. And Josh, you're amazing and we love you and you're just a good guy. You're just an awesome guy. But somebody who's a true friend, somebody who's committed to you, here the wise will say, hey, can we speak into each other's life? Because I love you, care about you, and I value you. Let me speak that into you. Here's what I see. So the wise, how do I do this? For me personally, man, stay open, stay teachable. Thank the people who are willing to invest in truth into your life. The fool, here's what you have to do. Ask yourself, why is it hard for you to take correction and responsibility? Man, the last time I had somebody come to me, I just went off on them. I changed the subject. I manipulated the conversation. I brought it all about them. Let me ask the question, why is it hard for you? Why is it hard for you to own it? Why is it hard for you to take correction? Why is it hard for you to take responsibility? Now, I get it, because listen, I'm here. My wife, if she was right here, and she was right here on her stool, she would tell you right here, there are areas in my life that I can be like, I'm good. I received that. That's awesome. The other week, she was like, I think you said stupid like 17 times in your sermon. I was like, what? Are you kidding me? No, I'm good. I'm fine. She's like, why is it hard for you to take correction? I'm like, what? I shouldn't have told her my sermon ahead of time. I'll go back. I'll listen to it. You're right. I didn't say it 15 times, though, just so you know. 14. Why is it hard for you in that one area? Maybe you could say, look, I'm good in all other areas. It's just one area. Why is it hard for you to take correction and responsibility? Let me give you the last one right here. Ask yourself, why is, for the evil, ask yourself, why is that my first response to correction? Why is my first response to correction anger and evil, to do damage, to tear them down? Here's what I do know is that people can change, but you can't change them. Only God can. And it's when we surrender our life and our pain and our past to Him and allow Him to transform us. Here's my closing scripture for you is Romans 12:2. It's not up on the screen. It's just what I have here. Do not copy the behavior and the customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way that you think, that you will learn to know that God's will for you, which is good and pleasing and perfect. Let's pray. God, will you transform me into a new person? Start with the way that I think about others, the way that I think about myself. God, help me to understand Proverbs chapter 9. Anyone who corrects the fool will get an insult in return. Anyone who corrects the evil will get hurt. So don't bother correcting the fools. They'll hate you. God, help me to invest in the relationships that Proverbs 8 says, but correct the wise and they'll love you. Lord, I pray healing over our lives today. Many of us have been here. And we've walked through conflict. We've walked through hard times and issues and situations and problems in our life. And I just pray healing upon us. God, would you help us? Would you change us? Would you fix us? Would you mend the broken heart, as your word says that you are the healer of the broken heart? Would you make us teachable, willing to receive? Help us to walk in the fruit of your Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, goodness, kindness, gentleness, self-control, faithfulness. Lord, I pray that over our lives and in all of our relationships.